Localizing Japanese games must sometimes feel like a thankless job. So many people pointing out that this is wrong or that is different, or even worse, people confusing changes for censorship. Not every change is censorship, and when you're localizing, changes do need to be made. There is simply no one-to-one translation from Japanese to English, and doing simple translations without proper localization not only disrupts the developer's intent and vision, it also cuts down our own understanding of the text. There is every possibility that I'll do a much longer version of this video one day, but for now, I just wanted to explain the basic difference between a translation and a localization with one simple scenario. So let's say that this is a line of dialogue in a game that needs to be translated. If we put that into Google Translate, we get something like seeking one's own interests. Now a correct translation would be something closer to pulling water to my own rice paddy, but this means pretty much nothing to us. A likely localization candidate to translate the meaning into something that we understand in English would be tooting my own horn. It's just a way of saying someone is being boastful of their own accomplishments. In English, a common phrase for this is tooting their own horn, or I don't want to toot my own horn. Pulling water to my own rice paddy, or to draw water into one's own rice field, is a Japanese proverb that largely means the same thing. So easy done, right? We just use tooting my own horn for this line of dialogue in the English version, right? Well... who's that waifu? It's Riku! Now let's imagine that the character saying this line of dialogue is actually standing in a rice paddy, and in Japanese he says it intending for it to be a joke. Does the localization team change the proverb to something we understand in English at the expense of the joke? Do they change the rice paddy into a music shop? Or do they keep the original Japanese proverb and potentially lose both meaning and humorous intent? Obviously, this particular example is just a made-up minor scenario, but it can be scaled up into things that truly matter. A situation like this would likely require the localization team discussing with the original developers the intent of this dialogue. Is it important that this character be seen as a jokester, or was this more of an inside joke that has no bearing on the character? Or maybe the fact that the character is standing in a rice paddy is important to the developer's intent in some way. Major changes that you do see in localized Japanese games are most often done with input from or with the guidance of the original developers. You might wonder why a character's name has been changed to something that sounds nothing like the original Japanese name. Well, maybe the original Japanese name was a very common name in Japan, and it was the developer's intent that the character's name be a common name. So in localization, they changed the name to a common English name. Before the Sony censorship spree began, we'd often see minor changes to sexual content in Japanese games in order to fit into certain ESRB or PEGI ratings. This isn't real censorship. The ESRB or other ratings boards aren't denying them a rating. They'd be perfectly happy to give them a restricted or 18+ rating, but the developers may have intended for their game to be played by teens, and decided that their target demographic was more important than an optional lingerie outfit. This is just something that happens in localization. Options are weighed and decisions are made to best deliver a product that accurately represents the developer's vision and intent. Censorship is what Sony is doing right now, forcing developers to make changes to their game that are against their vision in order to be released. I respect the hell out of localization workers. By and large, they do a fantastic job, and without them, we would be missing out on so many brilliant games. Localizing is full of challenges, but when done right, they ensure we are getting the best possible representation of the original game in a way that we can completely understand and appreciate it.